Welcome to this tutorial on enhancing your template using FLIR Thermal Studio. I am Bella with the Infrared Training Center here to help you get the most out of your reporting software. Now, Thermal Studio offers an array of features that allow you to process your infrared images, track trends in your thermal data, and create comprehensive inspection reports. Thermal Studio has several features that can be used to create a professional reporting template. Some of these enhancements are a title page and associated document properties, headers and footers, and a summary table. Incorporating a title page will help in producing a professional look of your report. Some of the recommendations would be your company details such as name, address, and a possible logo. It'd be important to include clients' details, name, address, and a contact name. Date the scan was conducted, and then the date the report was generated. Optionally, a photo of the scan site or customer's building can be included on the title page. Let's continue to develop the template that we've created so far. Version 6 was the last version we created, so I'm going to right-click on version 6, edit, and then as common practice, I'm going to save this template before making any changes as the next version. So it'll be version 0.07. To add a title page down at the bottom, we'll press the Add Page button, and we'd like this to be the first page of our report, so we'll move it up. The layout of the title page is completely arbitrary. Use core elements to populate your page. Text box elements are useful for static information. One tip is if you want the text to be centered evenly on the page, create the text box to go edge to edge horizontal text alignment to center it, and then type in the information. Adjust the font size if you want. So for instance, this I'm going to put in Infrared Training Center. "110 Lowell Road, Hudson, New Hampshire." As we see, the box wasn't large enough for the text I've added. Simply drag it down to encompass the information. You may want to add an image of the client's building that was scanned or a client's building period. So we can use what's called a shared image. Center it, resize it, center it again, make it as large as we want. We'll go to our shared image and browse. I have an image in my import, so let's add this image to my template again. I can resize it and put a border around it if I like. Again, by clicking on the element, we can see our options. I'm going to put a border thickness of 1 and make it black. We can continue populating the title page using the text box option or element. We can give the appearance to the report reader or your client that the specific report was designed for their particular requirements. What I'm doing is adding another text box center, aligning it, and I can say something like this: Thermal report has been generated for, and then use a different text box for the customer as an example, and a text box put it below, and again using the centering feature. The customer maybe add the address and so on. That is certainly a viable option. However, that means we'd have to type it in every single time, and if we wanted to have the customer's name located somewhere else within the report, we'd have to routinely type in and update all those instances where the customer has been included in a particular sentence or paragraph. A more convenient option is to use something called document properties. Let me now remove this. Document properties can be created using the Information tab here. These are the current default document properties that are created with the process. We can add, say, a label called Customer. We can normally leave it blank, but I like to input something to allow me to ensure alignment, positioning, size will be appropriate. Let me add one more and say Address. Actually, let's call it Customer Address. And again, we'll just put Customer Address. Much like the other template elements, we can add the complete document table to this page or an element by element. If we were to add the document properties table, we will get everything that's contained, and there's obviously information that is not appropriate to be displayed in the report. So I can reconstruct the table or modify the table by removing rows. A more convenient method is to include only the fields that we would like, the elements that we would like. So delete the table, go back to Add Element, and in this case, I'm now going to ask for a property value. The last property value that was added to the table will be the default to be selected the first time you access the element. I'm going to change the font size again center, but now go up to Property Key and select, in this case, the customer. I can resize this, and we'll add one more element obviously, so Document Property Value, and in this case, it is the customer address. I want Line It Up again, set the font, center it, and now the customer address will be added to the page. At runtime, we can set Thermal Studio to prompt us for document properties. Let me demonstrate that. Let me save this template. I'm going to exit the template. We'll need to navigate back to the Settings cog, Reporting, and now check the show prompt for document properties. Save these settings. Let's now run the template to create a report. Select our images, slide them into the Report Generation tab, wait until the report has been generated, and now the prompt comes up. So under Customer, we can override this and say the customer is Teledyne FLIR, for instance, and we'll just put in Nashua to just simplify this presentation. So now we'll close our library and we'll see that that has been inputted into the report. In an offline session, I took the liberty of adding more document properties to conserve time for this video. What I can now do is add a text box again and maybe add the report date. So again, let's set things up and report date. And then, of course, use a document property value that is the report date. So I'll just go ahead and change that. First report date, set the font 26 in center, and there it is because that was the last entry. I might want to highlight this to make it bold just for it to stand out. One more addition that we may want to add to our title page is a company logo. Go back to the core elements, insert logo name, it just places it by default someplace on the screen. We're going to move it up and I'm going to locate it here. Obviously, I need to resize it. Let's just put it there, and then in the logo image, I am going to look for it. So I'm going to browse, open that, and now that becomes our logo. This is probably enough as a starting point for the title page. Obviously, you can embellish it more. I am going to save this version since I've added a few things as my template. Version 0.09. Another advisable aspect of your report should include some company information and potentially some background of thermography, particularly if it's a new user or new report reader. We could do this conveniently, particularly if we have a Word document or some other document that we can copy some pages or text from and add it to the report template. Let's add another page, and what I want to do is deposit some information about, in this case, the Infrared Training Center, as I'm suggesting that that is the service provider. I've already have a Word document open, so I'm just going to Alt-Tab to it. Here's some verbiage. I am going to select and copy tab back to my Thermal Studio. Simply right-click and paste. The text is here. All I need to do is resize the page, center it, so on and so forth. If I want to change the font size, highlight it all, and on the right side here, change the font size to say our standard default that we've been using again. We can also add more formatting characteristics. Say I want to highlight these rows, and as such might want to add if I'm doing severity analysis and severity table and so on and so forth. We can add as many pages as we feel is necessary, with whatever information we feel is appropriate to the report reader. I should have saved a new version number before making the changes. So before continuing with more changes, I'll save this at this point in time. So save as template my template version 0.10. What I'd like to do now is add a header and footer to the pages to make it again add professionalism to the report. Simply scroll to the top of the current page, double-click at the very top. You'll see it's grayed out the main page because we're now in the editor for the header. What I can now do is add, say, the logo that we've selected from earlier. I might want to add a property, but not the template name, but the say the customer. And I'm now going to resize this and move it to the middle of the page. Something like that. And of course, center. I may want to add a text box for the moment and we'll size this. And the text box is simply going to have the title report date : One nice feature we can use with alignment is if we go back to customer, we'll notice that the top is sitting at 34. So to line things up evenly, I'll change this. It's a little maybe more convenient to do it this way than attempting to move it around. I can change the size of the box by moving the arrow, or sorry, the hotspots, or change the height here to say 25 what I now want to add. But first of all, let's move this over, and I'm now going to right justify this and then add the property value for the report date. I'm maybe going to resize the width, pardon me, the height, to 25 and move this over here slightly. This was 36, so we'll put this at 36 and maybe move it to the right, pardon me, to the left. I can do that by dragging it, or again, using, say, the positionings here. We can now scroll down and to the footer. In the footer, we may want to add a page number. So we're going to add the page number in the footer and move that over, say to the right, resize it. What I'm going to do though is right justify this. Hopefully I don't need all this size, move it over, maybe set it to there. Then I'm going to add a text box. Move it over to line up with. So I need to reduce the size. This is sitting at 24, so I want my text box to be at 24, and I'm going to say of, and then need to move it to the right a bit more. So let's try 5 and we'll see that it's a little close. So I can either move that one to the right or move this one to the left. Let's move this one to the left a bit, and then we can add the property of total pages and move it over and decrease the size and move it over to the left a bit. Set it 24, send it 24. Let's move it to the right just a bit more. So now we have maybe we want to add as a reminder a text box, and we can put this here and expand it a bit more. Let's say something like this center alignment and put in. Say the Infrared Training Center, Lowell, New Hampshire, and maybe leave a space and put it www.infraredtraining.com. So that's the footer and header for all the pages. So double click on the page, we'll see it's there. We'll see here, but we'll also see that it's on the title page, which we don't necessarily want to repeat this. So what we can do is on the empty page, select the page information and then show header, turn it off, show footer, turn it off. So now we have a clean title page. A useful asset to a report is the ability to list all the findings into a single table. This is particularly useful for a very large report. Thermo Studio has such a powerful feature, the summary table. I'm going to quickly save another version, so my template version 0.11 before I commence. I'd like to have the summit table in between my introduction page and the start of the analysis pages. I'm going to add a page. Right now it's been inserted above where I want it, so I'll just move it down. As you can see, the header and footer have now been applied. I go to Add Page Element, and now I will scroll down to find the summary table. By default, the summary table is going to contain file name, created, max temperature, so on and so forth. What I'd like to include in this will be the text comments of location, equipment, and the temperature rise. It's an easy task. Remove some of the columns I don't want for the moment, including file name. And now I'm going to add a column, and the first one will be text annotation, and it'll be location. Now again, the syntax has to be identical to the syntax in the report. I'm going to move this to the left because I want that in the first place. Then I also want to add another column, which is also a text comment, and it will be equipment. And again, move it to the left. And the last column I'd like to add is measurements, in this case delta, and the value from the delta. And in our report, it's called DT1, and I'll move that to the right just for a change. I can change the size of the columns by selecting the values I probably don't need. I don't need such a large columns for the page number and the delta. I can change this to say delta or temperature rise. I might want to make a little bit more room for location and equipment, and I'm going to bold these, and I'm going to center the numbers. I'll leave these left justified, so let me save this. So let's exit. I've already saved the changes. I'm going to save them in a way. Let's run the template, select our images, slide them into the staging area, as I like to call it, have the report generate. I'll fill in some of this information. So let's say it is MMA Hydro at, say, Main Street, Boston, Massachusetts, IR camera that was used. We'll say it was at 865. Add the serial number. Cal date. Camera operator was Sir William Herschel. And his certification will give him level 3. Don't bother with the other information. So now that's been saved, I'll hide the library. Scroll down to our page. There's, oh, I forgot report date. So I forgot report date. What I can now do is go to the information here, go down to report date and say it is July 17th, 2024. And as you can see, it's instantaneously updated. That information is now populated in our header. There's our customer name in our header. Scroll down. Our footer doesn't change. This is page 2 of 9, but here's our summary table, so we can quickly see the information about the equipment and the delta. Now here's a nice unique aspect of Thermal Studio. If we click on the double arrow, right-click on it, we can change the sorting of the table, and let's do it in descending order. So now what I've done, the report itself won't get restored. It's just a table. But now I can look at as a report reviewer. Oh, look, I have a major delta on page 9 and I cannot quickly scroll down to page 9 and so on and so forth. We can sort on any of the columns. We can add whatever columns we want, but this is a good report. If we now scroll down, we can see the production area, so on and so forth. There's the temperature rise indicative of a minor problem, and so on and so forth. So I'm going to save this report as a sample report and as an ATR file. That way, if I want to come back and make some editorial changes, I can do that. If I'm not going to send this out to a customer, as I mentioned in a previous presentation, I would print this as a PDF. And the suggested interface for that would be the Microsoft Print to PDF. I'm not going to bother at this point in time, but that's what you can be done and go back and thank you.